Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, nerd and nerdettes. Now, last week I did the whistling lead shot, and someone had the really cool idea to overlap it to see what it would sound like with a bunch of them coming at once. So I wanted to do that real quick just so you can kind of hear that, because I thought it was a missed opportunity last video. It's pretty crazy, right? You wouldn't even hear it, because the other side would be shooting them with guns. Sorry, Who are you? Oh, that's right. You guys haven't met yet, have you? You're a beta. Oh, was it the skirt that gave it away? Was that your big clue? Also, I don't think you spelt that right. Yeah, don't worry about him, man. He's basically like the combination of all that negative alpha male comments that I get on my videos just kind of put into one horrible, awful personality. Dude, stop with the just for men, the disgusting HRT hairline. Oh, I get it. So like the negativity is much more of an indicator that the commenter is extremely unhappy with their position in life, and instead of trying to do something constructive, they try to spread negativity online to other people so they feel bad as well. Peter Pan. I don't think that one even made sense. If I'm honest, not a lot of them make sense, but the most important thing to remember is that comments and things like that only have power over you if you let them. If you're happy with yourself and confident with yourself, it doesn't matter. At the end of the day, you can go home, kiss your beautiful wife, be happy with your 3 boys, and the fact you got a job and a home. Because, you know, not everyone does. Like SgtAlpyaBro here. Just a sad shell of a man, spitting out hate. David cheated. He brought a gun to a knife fight. Oh, no, you did not. So today we're going to be breaking not only probably the most famous example of a sling in history, but also one of the most famous examples of single combat in history. And I'm going to look at the characters in play, those who were part of the story, to see whether or not, as many people have commented, David cheated. Quick disclaimer, if you believe the story is entirely fiction and is no more real than, let's say, the labors of Heracles, that's completely fine. I understand and I appreciate you. If you believe it was ordained by God and God had a hand in it supernaturally, to give David the strength to defeat Goliath, that's totally cool, and I appreciate you being here as well. This is not an apologetics. I neither have the intelligence nor the wherewithal to really articulate what the truth may be. But I'm going to look at it as a story presented in history and in writing as we know it, and see whether or not there was an advantage that was gained by using a ranged weapon in what would be considered a melee contest. So going through single combat as it's represented in film, it's really easy to think that it was just a sword-on-sword honorable battle. But what we see in a lot of the examples from the Iliad, when Hector fights Achilles and when Hector fights Ajax, both of them started with a spear throw. That wasn't necessarily an honor conflict. They kind of met on the battlefield. But the important thing to note is that ranged weapons would often open up these battles. So Goliath was noted as having a really large spear. This is about 9 feet here. His was said to be 12, but he also had a javelin. So it's not really outside the realm of possibility to say that he easily could have used a ranged weapon as well, because he had a bronze javelin on his back, as it's noted. So since it's single combat, let's break down the fighters, basically the tail of the tape, right? Goliath was anywhere from 7 feet to 10 feet, depending on how you read it. Completely clad head to toe in bronze. That's gonna be the best defense available at the time. Noted as being a champion, meaning he probably won many other single combat experiences as well. So he'd be a seasoned fighter, a seasoned veteran, let's say. He had no shortage of confidence and arrogance. And I think this is a quote from him. It's from the direct Hebrew, so I maybe get it wrong. I'm a little rusty on that, but I think it was, he said when he saw David,
"Damn, I'm 260, bro."
Unless you're 260.
About 260 right now.
Yeah, but I'm 260.
sorry, that was a bad joke. I might keep that in, maybe not. We'll see. David, on the other hand, was a small shepherd boy. Obviously, he had trained the sling. He was extremely proficient in it, but he was small. Now, I myself am 5'11", which by society standards mean I'm basically 1 inch away from having value as a man in society. But just for an example here, let's put up kind of a dummy of what something that's 7 or 10 feet would look like in comparison to me clad in armor. So that's a very imposing foe with a lot of strength, a lot of dexterity, and durability and protection. The most important thing is the amount of protection that was carried on this person. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take the sling and I'm gonna put it against different, somewhat analogous armor types of the time to see how it would do if it wasn't a perfect shot. Because if everyone with a sling could hit perfectly, then I don't see why there'd ever be any other combatant to enter the ring. But I want to try it against all the different armaments to see how it does if that shot didn't go just where it needed to be, if there'd be a chance for a second shot, or if that would actually drop someone. There's gonna be a bit of a continuity break because in the next segment I've completely changed my outfit because it's a different day, so just don't want to jar you too much. But let's start with some range. About like a 35-yard shot, something like that. So I'm gonna use this sling here. This is a larger Ballistic sling, so it's longer than the normal ones I have. I'm gonna use a little bit of a larger projectile, but still not super duper heavy, and kind of see what kind of speed I can get traveling from about 35 yards to that target. The left, forgot to put on my sling belt for style points. This is more of a ruffian rogue than a Ballistic slinger, I feel. The other one is dirty, so getting washed now. Now, for nothing else, I hope the one thing you can definitely see from that is using a sling is not like using a gun. I think that's the one thing I have problems with is David brought a knife to a gunfight, etc., etc. It is immensely hard to get decent with a sling and to hit something from more than 15 yards. I feel like when I go back to 35, that's much, much harder to me. It changed the game dramatically. You have to be spot on. And so the amount of skill it takes to get good at that, the amount of practice it takes, saying just someone brought a gun is really kind of doing a disservice to the skill of the slinger and the confidence they had in their ability to do so. Because it's not an easy thing. It's not a sure shot, right? It is a big gamble and a big risk to hit something small from a distance. Next thing I want to go over is the armor type. It's basically stated that Goliath was covered from head to toe with bronze. I don't have good bronze armor. I would imagine it's probably 14 gauge. All I have is this brass helmet here. It's like 16 or 18 gauge rather, so really not super heavy duty quality. But I got a pumpkin in here, but I want to try and nail this helmet and see what happens with it when I do hit it, how much of an impact that is, and if in fact, if it hit anywhere else than the head, if that would cause a problem. They obviously didn't have a Corinthian helmet. There's not a lot of, data on what the Philistines had, but I'm gonna say we're just gonna use this just kind of as a rough estimate for a light protection. So this does have an arming cap in it as well. You can't see, it doesn't go all the way down, but it's up right in here. So I'm gonna try and hit it right in this spot right there and see what happens because it's fun to break stuff. This one here, I'm gonna go back to this sling here, which is the really cool wool sling with a little Witcher logo on it. And I'm gonna be a little bit closer just because I want to try and get a good clean shot, slow-mo, and then I'll get one up close as well and see how it performs. So that one hit right here, up in this spot here. So it dented it in substantially. Let's see what happened to this. The impact was here, so it hit into the side and kind of the metal scraped against it a little bit there. So that would probably definitely be a concussion or some serious internal head damage. But, you know, if you're a big guy, there's no guarantee it's going to drop you outright. So again, the shot needs to be really perfect. So if they had an open face visor, there's such a small margin there that it really is something that is, man, that shot is crazy, especially if you have a shield in front of you. It's just not going to do much. It's not going to really do more than just ring your bell, especially if you're a hardened warrior, as it would say. So I don't think it's going to do much. But just for fun, I want to hit this once without the helmet. Close up, of course. Now, I'd definitely be willing to say it's pretty obvious to most people that a pumpkin is not the same thickness and density of a human skull. I already did the ballistics dummy test, as you can see, and it did exceptionally well against that. But that was just to prove a point that the helmet did do a good job, even though it's not amazing quality. The rock is actually still in there, which is kind of cool. But you can see that it does a really good job, because if that would have hit unprotected like that, it would not have done it. But because of the helmet, even though it's just a thin helmet, that dissipation of impact here was enough to keep it from going basically in and through and giving it to basically just like a mild hit. So again, it's got to be a perfect shot. So the next thing I want to show is how the sling will do against a wooden shield. Now this is plywood here. You can see this shot right in here the other day. Oh my gosh, it's still stuck in there very well. That punch through it into it, but not all the way through. And if you have like a better quality shield with multiple layers, it's going to bounce right off. And I'll kind of show some examples of that in the past when I've tested it right now. So one thing I definitely think you can take away from those shield tests is that even if you have a really heavy stone, a really long sling, and a lot of power, it's not going to do enough to punch through that. So if you have something in front of you that's wood and it's not cheap OSA board or, you know, plywood, it's going to stop it. And so that's going to cover a large portion of your body. And if you have that with you, even a simple wooden shield can protect you from a lot. Now, next up is the body armor. Now, I don't have any bronze armor, and if I did, I highly doubt I would use it to hit with a sling. But what I do have, which would be period appropriate for the time, just to show you the results, is I have this 29-layer quilted linen and this 29-layer glued together linen. I did a recent test with this, with the sling and the swords, and so I want to show you the results of that. So this would be considered inferior at the time. This is not as solid or strong, but even this, you'll see, does a really good job of deflecting that slingshot. Now, a lot of these comments and a lot of this thought comes from the writings of Malcom Gladwell, who wrote a book about David and Goliath in 2013. In that book, he stipulated a lot of things. Part of it in the beginning was about the skill of a slinger. So he talked about how a skilled slinger could hit a target from 200 yards away, how David had every intention and knew very well he'd be able to make that shot. He also referenced a few things that were kind of, in his mind, alluding to the fact that Goliath couldn't see very well. He was expecting an armed melee combat, so he was at a disadvantage because of that. That all seems very armchair quarterback-ish about the historian. I think a lot of historians tend to armchair quarterback things. And I think that simply saying that a slinger could do this or a slinger could do that really doesn't do justice to how difficult it is. It was noted that these things could be done in history, and therefore it can be done like this. But being able to do those feats is nothing short of amazing. It's not something that every slinger could do, nor is it something every person in history could do. So unless you've actually used or practiced with the sling, it's really difficult to convey exactly how hard it is to hit a target or even get it to go directly in front of you, for that matter. I almost hit my car. That even excludes the human component, which is the adrenaline, the fear, being someone who's never been in battle against someone who's been in battle. If you've ever done any sort of combat sports, you well know that the first round you get in there, you get cotton-mouthed. You can't think straight. You kind of revert back to more of basic just flailing. Unless you're one of those rare people who just sees red and can eviscerate anyone. Everyone knows if you've worked on pads, once you get into the ring, you basically forget everything and just start flailing. I think even a grappling component, if you look back at the videos when you were a white belt and you look how you moved and just how you sprawled and flailed, it's really embarrassing to look back on it. So basically what it's saying is that this novice who'd never been in a professional fight, let's say, went straight to the top of the level and was able to perform and throw the perfect punch the first time out with the adrenaline, with the fear, with the apprehension, and make that shot and thread that needle. And to me, that's just a tall order. So I feel like one of the questions people may ask is why make such a big fuss out of something that may or may not have even happened? What's the point? What's the big deal when it comes to defending this, whether or not he cheated or not? Say in reality, it's because I feel like in the recent years, whether that be Luke Skywalker being turned into a sad old hermit, Indiana Jones being a shell of his former self, taking the Jedi who were good, making them questionable and morally gray, or even humanizing the orcs, so it's like they were obviously written different now than what Tolkien had interpreted as pure evil. There seems to be muddling and the removal of heroes from culture and heroes and paragons of virtue and good. And that's what I think the stories do for us. That's what the stories tell us. That's why I don't care necessarily whether or not if it was a historical fact or if it even happened. It's much more that the idea of an underdog being able to defeat a superior foe with basically just a weapon that's accessible to the everyman is something that we can apply to our lives. Something that can teach us, it's something that can give us guidance in our days. Even though we may not be able to achieve those paragons of virtue that we read about, the Aragorns, the Superman, the Captain America, it gives us something to strive for and teaches us something that we can apply to our lives in every day. And that's my little soapbox moment. In summary, I don't think David cheated. He took a huge risk and a huge gamble in an unorthodox style of warfare and applied a weapon that should not have been able to win against an opponent that should have beaten him. So to me, the factuality of it is irrelevant because I feel that that is a good lesson to teach to our children and to those around us, is that have faith in yourself, have confidence in your ability, even against undeniably vastly superior odds. Strive for it, go for it with confidence, and take that shot.